We have already derived the aggregate demand curve, which is downward sloping. Now if we try to draw the aggregate supply curve, the aggregate supply curve again is tracking the relationship between GDP on the x-axis and price level on the y-axis, GDP represented by Y and price level represented by P. The aggregate supply curve traces how price and GDP are related. Now we will look the supply of goods and services in the economy and how it responds to a change in the price level.
Let us see.
At the new price level P2, which is higher than P1, what happens to output? Now we would to understand what would happen to output, we need to remember that production is undertaken by firms and they are guided by the motive of profit, which is broadly represented by total revenue minus total cost, which is price into quantity minus cost into quantity, which is P minus C into quantity. Don't confuse this P with this P, because this is the overall price level, and here we are saying for a individual firm how things are: the price of his product, his cost of production, and the quantity of output that he is producing. And it is the sum of Q for all firms, which is Y. Y is nothing but summation of Q. Okay, and say Qi I1 to n. Suppose there are n firms, so output of n firms is represented as Y. Now when price level goes up, what happens? See, we would talk about three theories. One is the sticky wage, second is the sticky price, here AY is missing, and unions will ask and how much firms would agree to give. That would depend on the expected increase in price level or expected inflation. Let both firms and the unions had agreed to a 10% wage hike, okay, because they expect inflation to be 10% in the next 1 year. And this wage bargain, which is struck between firms and the unions, is valid for say 6 months or 1 year. Now let us consider they have agreed in the next 1 year wages will now will increase by 10%, and it would remain so for the next 1 year. But it so happens that the central bank increases money supply to such an extent that the price level actually increases by 15%. That means the actual price level increases by 15%. Now when this happens, who is benefiting? Now firms had agreed to give a 10% increase in wage hike, and wages are a major component of cost. So cost of production for them has gone up by 10% from wages. But because inflation is 15%, prices have gone up by 15%, they are able to sell the product at a much higher price, which is giving them a larger difference between price and cost, so which causes the profit of firms to increase. And because their profits are increasing, firms would have an incentive to increase. But the firm, suppose when firms are printing catalogs at the beginning of the year, they are intimating the new prices to consumers, which uh, is based on their expected inflation of say 10%, but the actual price rise has been 15%. Now what would happen? Now firms which are quick to come out with new willing to wait and watch, and before intimating new prices, maybe some firms have a policy that they will increase price only once in or twice in a year. Now some of those firms who are not increasing their uh, the prices, they would find that the price of their product is relatively lower compared to the prices of the products of their competitors. Okay, suppose you are making bulbs. Now you have not increased the price of your bulb. Suppose Surya has not increased, but Philips bulb has increased the price of its product, because the overall price level is increasing and increasing more than what they had expected. So you would find for till Surya bulbs had have till the Surya bulbs have not increased their prices in keeping with the inflation, consumers would find that the prices of Surya bulbs are relatively cheaper compared to the prices of bulbs by Philips. So some customers who are price sensitive, you may find they will now purchase more of the bulbs produced by Surya company. Now what that leads to, because sales of bulbs from the Surya company is going up, they have an incentive to increase production. So this increased sales and increased production will be you're finding that the prices of your competing brands of chocolates are rising, so you are also increasing the price of your product, your brand of chocolate, and you are thinking that because prices are rising and you are able to charge a higher price, you should expand production. Okay, now when you get the bill of your purchases of the overall sales and purchases, because you were not able to appreciate that prices of your ultimate product, or you had mistaken the increase in the price of your product as an increase in the relative price of your product compared to the other products that is available in the economy. What is happening in fact is that the increase in the price of your product is on account of the increase in the cost of the raw materials or the inputs, and because your product is increasing, and that is prompting you to increase production, so that is ultimately leading to an increase in output. Now please remember that we are not saying that all firms are are saddled with sticky wages or sticky prices or misperceptions. Now, some firms in some industries, or in some industries, you may find the phenomena of sticky wages, sticky prices, and misperception to be more prevalent. And if somebody says which of these theories imperfections, so these are actually what they are: sticky wages, sticky prices, and misperceptions are imperfections in the market. Faced with these market imperfections, they respond to an increase in price level by increasing their production, and which gives us a upward sloping aggregate supply curve. Now the same reasoning we can apply when price level goes down, say from P1 to P3. What would happen? Let us go back to the sticky waste theory. As per the sticky waste theory, suppose people had expected 10% increase in prices or inflation, but the actual inflation turned out to be only say 5%. So this was our P2 and let this be P3. So if actual inflation turns out to be 5%, then what would be the response of firms? Now they have agreed to give.
So when actual price level
Is below the expected price level, you would find that it is profitable for firms to cut back production, maybe from Y1 to Y3. Okay, so that is the sticky waste theory. As far as the sticky price theory, now firms who are quick suppose prices are increasing only by 5%, now they have already intimated about a 10% increase in the price of the product
what they generally
or normally they experience, but firms revise down the price of their product. Now the price of their product is relatively higher compared to the prices of the competitors products, so those firms would experience a fall in sales, so that would prompt them to lower production. So again you will move from Y1 to Y3. And as far as that is giving you a misperception, relative price of your product is coming down, which makes it rather non-lucrative. What is happening, you are not able to appreciate the fact that your cost of raw materials are also not increasing at a very high pace, so that that would necessitate an increase in the price of the final product of a very large order. So because of your inability to appreciate the change in the or the decline in the cost of raw materials, you are thinking that price of your product is falling or it is not rising at the rate that you would have liked it to, then your response is you are reducing output. So whatever way you look at, you are getting what, a lower output when price level is falling. So but please remember what we are trying to say, output will be equal to the natural rate of output plus A into P minus PE. This is my aggregate supply curve. This is telling me that if this is the full employment output Yn, then what we are saying, this is my aggregate supply curve. When so at this point, when P at point A, we are finding P is equal to PE. So when P is equal to PE, the upward sloping aggregate supply curve that we have discussed is the short run version of the aggregate supply curve, and the Yn is my aggregate supply curve comes in two different versions. One is in the long run how much an economy can produce, that is given by its natural rate of output, because when all your factors of production are fully employed, that is the maximum output that you can get, or this is the full employment output. But in the short run, output can be below Yn, or output can be above Yn, or can be below Yn, depending on what is happening to actual price level vis-a-vis the expected price level. Okay, here P is equal to PE. Now for this portion we have discussed that P is greater than PE, and for this portion P is less than PE. Okay, so my aggregate supply curve can be represented as y is equal to yn plus a p minus pe. A is the responsive factor which tells how output responds to a deviation of actual price level from the expected price level. Okay, so this is the responsive factor.
natural rate of output.
However, in the long run, all the imperfections are sorted out. Sticky prices no more remain sticky, sticky wages no more remains sticky, and misperceptions are corrected. So in the long run, what you will find, P is equal to PE, which will give me Y is equal to YN. Okay, and this YN is nothing but my natural rate of output, which is consistent with the natural rate of unemployment. Next we would discuss the fact.
Okay, we will discuss that in the next session.